always been fascinated by the Bling Ring true crime case. I'm not like the biggest true crime nut, but this is definitely my favorite true crime case of all time. I think you can guess why, seeing like the theme of my channel and my obsession with pop culture and Hollywood and celebrities and TV. Hello and welcome back to the Miscellaneous channel where we do miscellaneous things. I'm still Nenny. I typically cover TV, pop culture, internet trends, and other miscellaneous things on this channel, so subscribe if that's your vibe. So today I want to talk about an older movie. I want to revisit The Bling Ring 10 years later. Recently I made a G.B.F video that was 10 years later, but it was technically like 8 or 9 years later, but in this case it is 9 years later, but it has been over 10 years since the true story it's based on happened. But today I wanted to specifically talk about the movie The Bling Ring from 2013. I recently watched this movie because I got Showtime to try it out, which I'm not enjoying that much. That was one of the few movies I saw in there that I was interested in. So I wanted to revisit the movie and evaluate it and talk in general about the Bling Ring case. Not super in-depth on the case itself, but just talking about where the movie came from, like the article it was based on. Let me start with my usual question, and that is the Bling Ring worth watching? So the Bling Ring is interesting because it's not your average polished mainstream commercial movie. It has a hipster indie angle to it. It's produced by A24, which should tell you the vibe. Nowadays, A24 has, I think, refined their style a lot. And it was slow through the years establishing themselves as like the powerhouse that they are now for like indie hipster type movies. But back then, A24 was still finding its footing and its tone. And The Bling Ring is definitely a movie that is attempted to be very artsy. It's a film. And therefore I do recommend it. I don't think it's a great film though. Like, I think it's a film trying to make a lot of artistic choices or artsy-fartsy choices, in my opinion, that don't necessarily work out. So if you're interested in film and critiquing, I do recommend it in that sense, but what I recommend it most for is just to get the true crime story in a visual form, because the true crime story itself that it's based on is extremely interesting, and the movie is the only piece of media that documents or depicts this true crime story. As far as the movie goes, I don't believe it's very good. It's not technically good, which is weird because the critics' consensus is leaning positive on this movie. I assumed it was panned because I remember at the time when it came out, it was like kind of made fun of a bit. It wasn't taken super seriously, but the movie did make its debut at Cannes, and it was trying to be like a film, like a award type film. It didn't win any major awards, and I just assumed it was critically panned, but when I looked on Wikipedia, it had a lot of positive reviews. A lot of the praises were for Emma Watson's acting, which I thought was literally the worst part of this movie. And I feel so bad because I love Emma Watson. Like, of course, I grew up watching her on Harry Potter, and I appreciate her a lot. Even in Beauty and the Beast, I liked her okay. Emma Watson had this era of like trying to shed her good girl image and trying to be more of a bad girl, taking on American roles of like party girls, notably in Perks of Being a Wallflower and The Bling Ring. I think those are the main ones. Maybe she was gonna be on Spring Breakers too and then was replaced. Is that someone? There was someone that was replaced last minute on Spring Breakers, but I don't know for sure if it was Emma Watson. So Emma Watson was trying to do this thing, but the problem was she was not good at acting these roles. They're just extremely different from like her usual self, and like I think it was too big a challenge because in both of these American roles I've seen her in, her accent slips through so much, her British accent. It just takes me out completely of the character that she's supposed to be playing. In The Bling Ring, she's supposed to be playing a character based on Alexis, Neiers, who is a reality TV viral moment star. I'll talk about her in a sec. She has this really strong Valley Girl accent, and Emma Watson was trying to do it, I think, in the movie, but it just came out this weird, like, half British thing, and I feel so bad, like, being shady at her for this, but I found it like one of the weakest parts of the movie, and it was supposed to be a big selling point for the movie because Emma Watson was one of the only A-list names on the cast list. I saw several reviews from critics on Wikipedia that praised her performance. Honestly, that in itself convinced me that critic reviews are altered and paid for by people's agents and managements, because there's no way in good faith they praised Emma Watson's performance in this movie. And I'm not even like hard to please with acting. So that's my take. I generally do recommend it if you are interested in pop culture history and true crime, but you do have to like push past the technical aspects and the poor acting, in my opinion, to get the story, which is the juicy part. So let me talk a little bit about the Bling Ring. This movie is based on an article published in Vanity Fair called "The Suspect Wore Louboutins" by Nancy Jo, which you may or may not recall if you were watching reality TV in the late 2000s that Alexis Neiers was the main source that Nancy Jo interviewed for this article. Alexis Neiers was also coincidentally filming a reality TV show when all of this shit blew up that she was in the Bling Ring. E had picked up a reality TV show of her and her family. She said it was meant to be like the crunchy granola version of the Kardashians. I remember at the time there were a lot of like attempts at making reality shows of different families to see if any would stick the way the Kardashians did. On day 2 of filming, Alexis Neiers got arrested for this Bling Ring case. And season 1 of the show pivoted to featuring Alexis Neiers' arrest and her court case and the family dealing with all of that. The show only ran for 1 season. It was called Pretty Wild, and it had this viral moment where Alexis Neiers is leaving an angry voicemail to Nancy Jo, the writer of the Vanity Fair article, saying she was really displeased and hurt by how she was portrayed in this article. This is because Nancy Jo had lied at least about one thing in the article, and that is the shoes that Alexis Neiers was wearing.
There's many things that I read in here that were false. Like you saying that I wore 6-inch Louboutin heels to court with my tweed skirt when I wore 4-inch little brown baby shoes.
This seems like a small detail to obsess over by Alexis, but I do see her side a bit because the whole title of the article was "The Suspect Wore Louboutins." If you don't know anything about fashion, who says I don't know anything about fashion? Louboutins are the shoes with the red soles that are very expensive. So we see in the reality TV show, Alexis reads the magazine and gets really upset that her shoes were misrepresented. She says that she was wearing brown kitten heels that were $29. This lie was made the entire title of the article. It seemed like the author was trying to have some shoe motif in the article because she mentions Alexis Neiers wearing the Louboutins, and then the very last line of the article is about Nick Prugo, which was one of the ringleaders of the Bling Ring. Nancy Jo notices he's wearing shiny black shoes and is like, "What kind of shoes are those?" And he's like, "Oh, they're thrifted. They were $13. So I think it's meant to show like Alexis Neiers is thriving in her Louboutins while Nick Prugo is giving up the luxury lifestyle. But she totally just made up the kind of shoes Alexis was wearing. This seems like a small detail to obsess over, but it makes you question and think what other things have been fabricated in this article and exaggerated. It did for me make me lose a little bit of trust in the article and in Nancy Jo. I watched a more recent interview with Alexis Neiers talking about that viral moment where she broke down sending voicemails to Nancy Jo. "Nancy Jo, this is Alexis Neiers calling."
Nancy Jo, this is Alexis Neiers calling.
And then the mom keeps yelling in the background. Full breakdown, like perfect reality TV moment. Still an iconic moment in reality TV history. I saw a recent interview with Alexis Neiers, who now goes by Alexis Haynes and is active on social media. She has a podcast called Recovering from Reality, which I'm very curious to check out now. I just found out about it doing research. Sounds like right up my alley. I love hearing, especially people that were towards the beginning of the reality TV boom, talk about their experiences on their respective shows. But Alexis now seems to have a much better head on her shoulders. I didn't do a ton of research, so I don't know if she's like problematic or canceled or promotes MLMs or something, because she seems like the type that might. But I saw one interview with her that was really enlightening to see, and she kind of told her side of the story. She talked about her sobriety journey, which is a big deal. She was on hard drugs from the time she was in middle school through her arrests, and it was finally when she got arrested that she started becoming clean. But she was like doing hard drugs like heroin and stuff, and we see a little bit of that in the movie. Actually, it's really confusing in the movie because the names are all different. So if you go on Wikipedia, you can see who each character is based on, but it's annoying because they have different names. It's not like a biopic directly using their actual names. Maybe you have to acquire rights from them to make it a direct biopic. So Alexis says that drug use was a big issue for her, and the reason she was scrounging for money all the time and just had her life in shambles. She was on drugs when they were filming the reality show. She says she can laugh now about the viral moment with voicemail, and has even collaborated to sell a t-shirt of it, which I bought of course. So anyway, the Bling Ring, I haven't even described what the Bling Ring is. The Bling Ring was a group of middle-class suburban teens in 2008 through 2009 that robbed a bunch of celebrity homes using the untapped power of the internet and the sheer audacity that they had to steal luxury goods from celebrity homes. They targeted Paris Hilton, Orlando Bloom, Audrina Patridge, Rachel Bilson, Megan Fox, and Brian Austin Green, and ultimately Lindsay Lohan. They broke into a lot of these homes multiple times. They also attempted to break into Ashley Tisdale's house. They were trying to get Vanessa Hudgens, Zac Efron, Hilary Duff. Like, they had their eyes on everybody. The way they would do this is they would stalk the celebrities on social media or on blogs back then, not even social media yet. When a celebrity had a job somewhere else, so if Paris Hilton was hosting a party or DJing somewhere, if Orlando Bloom was shooting a movie out of state, they would find that out and know that their house is empty. So they would then go to the house, maybe case it a little, and then ultimately sneak in, try to find unlocked doors. They would try to find keys under mats, and were surprisingly successful at getting inside without like breaking glass and stuff. It was all burglaries that would be hard to notice unless you realize the items are missing. And the issue with some of these celebrities is that they have so much stuff, so many bags and jewelry and dresses and everything that they were stealing. Someone like Paris Hilton wouldn't notice things were missing, and it took a while to figure out all of these celebrities have been burglarized, and then figuring out that the burglaries were all connected. The leaders of the Bling Ring were Rachel Lee and Nick Prugo. They were known as the ringleaders. Alexis Neiers was involved, plus a few other teens and acquaintances of theirs that were adults. As the robberies went on, they would add more people. Like, they would just invite people over to Paris's, you know, not like a party full of people, but just like adding people to the raids. And they would also brag at parties about the hauls they would get at these robberies. They would post pictures on Facebook wearing luxury goods that are very unique and expensive. This case is so interesting because it is so unique. It's a campy true crime case that a bunch of teens would figure out a way to get into celebrity homes that they worshipped. Like, they were fans of celebrities. And this is really a true crime story about stalker fans and privacy more than it's about being a thief or luxury items necessarily. Like, the main ringleader, Rachel, was so obsessed with these celebrities. Her queen was Lindsay Lohan. Like, I respect that. But they were so obsessed to the point they wanted to have their things. And it wasn't so much about getting a bunch of money, even though a lot of them had drug addictions of some sort, but they wanted the lifestyle. In the article and in the movie, they talk about how they didn't really know why they did it, and they just wanted the lifestyle and were enamored by the stuff. There's just something camp about being motivated by beauty and luxury and celebrity and being that obsessed with fame. And I don't say that as like I condone it or it's fascinating in a good way. It's just like fascinating in like it's a unique-ish case of fan obsession that I think I also find interesting because they were able to take advantage of the internet in a way that adults hadn't fathomed yet and didn't think to protect themselves from. Like, these celebrities' homes had low security for some kids to be getting into them. It was just interesting how they used the power of the internet to Google their addresses to find out when they were out of town and use that to harm those celebrities. It definitely was a turning point in society where doxing and home security became so much more elevated and needed to advance to keep up with the internet. And I feel like nowadays celebrities have more robust security systems. Even then, like, the way they took advantage of the humanity of the celebrities too, of like leaving a key under the mat. It just seems like a simpler time, and they just were in the right moment in time to take advantage of the resources at their disposal to pull off something that seems so impossible. The movie The Bling Ring was directed by Sofia Coppola. She's a nepotism director. Her dad is Francis Ford Coppola, who directed The Godfather, and I'm ashamed to admit I didn't know that till just right this second when I looked at Wikipedia. Sorry, I'm not a film nerd, like I am a pop culture girly. She's definitely done a lot of movies, but I don't think The Bling Ring has been her best. I can't say I've seen other of her movies, so I don't know how it compares. But I did not love the directing on this movie. She was critically praised generally for it, so those reviews are either bought or there's some artsy hipster stuff I'm not seeing. Either way, the directing choices were choices. So let me get into my discussion of The Bling Ring, the movie itself. I gave a lot of background there. The movie stays pretty true to the article. There were so many direct quotes from the article. It's pretty loyal to it. I wish they had just bought the rights to all of the names because it's very direct, based on a true story thing, and they just changed the characters' names. Like, I don't even know how to refer to the characters in this case, because it's like, do I refer to them by their movie character name or the real life person they're based on? Okay, I'll use the movie names. Rachel is named Rebecca in the movie, Nick is named Mark, and Alexis is named Nikki. Let me talk about some technical aspects about the movie. This was where most of my problems came in. I think the lighting was not good. And a lot of these technical aspects I'm talking about were artistic choices. So art is subjective and I hated it. If you liked it, good for you. You are artsier than me. In this whole movie, either every shot was overexposed or underexposed. Here's overexposed. Here's underexposed. The overexposed scenes particularly, they were just blinding. And then similarly, in the audio, it was also playing between two extremes. The audio was either super loud, usually when the music was playing, and then super quiet when there was dialogue. I mean, there's a lot of whispering because these kids are robbing homes, and I could not fucking hear the whispering. I had to turn it up, and then the music would blast and blow me away with how loud it was. I didn't like the extremes in both the light and the audio of this movie. I also thought the acting was not great. I think the main kid, Mark, based on Nick in real life, he did fine. He seemed like a good actor. Like, he brought the character out well. But Rebecca, who was based on Rachel, was just not a good actress. Like, I didn't believe her confidence. It felt very like she was a robot the whole time. And I think they're trying to play with like that's how she was in real life, but I don't know, just I didn't buy the acting for Rebecca. I mean, it's a cutthroat role. She was the ringleader and always kept her cool, but she was also like a crazed stan, and I don't know, there was not much nuance with the actress that played her, and I wanted more. I already talked about Emma Watson. I thought her acting was awful. Like, her accent was not Valley Girl at all. You can ask any British person on the street, and I feel like they can do an American accent, so I don't know what the deal is with Emma Watson. I think it's just like a weakness of hers, and I'm glad she moved on from that. I think she doesn't really do a bunch of American roles anymore that I know of. She has the one famous gif in this where she's sticking out her tongue and dancing at the club, so That's an iconic moment, I guess. We had so much source material of Alexis Neiers. It's like she had a whole reality TV show based around her and this case. Emma Watson kind of had no excuse. The other characters, I guess they could make up how their characters were, but we had the material of Alexis Neiers, so Emma Watson could have nailed her impression. I feel so bad hating on Emma Watson though. Like, I'm really not trying to be evil here. I'm just stating it like it is. The best acting in all of this was Leslie Mann, of course. She's a consummate professional who played the mom of Alexis Neiers and Sam, whatever her name was, Tess in real life. She was like really religious, but the religion was like The Secret, which is so funny because like back then, yeah, The Secret was so big. She's like homeschooling them on all these weird manifesting beliefs and stuff. So lots of technical aspects working against this movie. The directing of the shots was weird. Like, they have whole conversations where you just see one wide camera angle the whole time. Usually in movies, you're alternating camera angles almost at all times. You have close-ups of characters' faces, wide shots to see how they relate, medium shots. This movie would just pick one angle and stay there. The camera was the laziest camera. It didn't want to move. And then on top of it, the shot would be overexposed too. So it was just not my favorite artistic choices. It felt like just making artsy choices just to make them and not for like a deeper reason. And maybe I'm just not seeing the deeper meaning, but I tried to think. Something I thought was interesting about this movie is how it subtly showed kind of the concept of the G.B.F, which I recently explored in my G.B.F review if you want to check it out on my channel. All of the girls really treated Mark in the movie like a G.B.F, especially Rebecca, the main ringleader, and that's how they became this duo. They just had this relationship where he loved her like a sister, and she loved him, and he liked to style her a little bit. And in the article, this is echoed by how Alexis Neiers and her basically adopted sister were fighting over Mark because they both wanted his attention, and it felt very much like they were all tokenizing him or treating him a bit like an accessory, which at the time the G.B.F was becoming trendy to objectify for youth culture. There was a Teen Vogue article, and that's what inspired the movie G.B.F. that said a G.B.F is the hottest new accessory. Obviously a very problematic article, and I can see the impact of that general sentiment a little bit in the story because all of the girls are vying for Mark or Nick's attention and also treating him like their own just personal stylist or confidant. So I thought that was an interesting, like, subtle thing that's depicted in this movie. It's not outwardly talked about, and I kind of wish it had. Maybe it was too early because the setting is 2008, 2009. Something else that this movie really depicted was nightclub culture, which I remember in the 2000s, it was just so much about clubbing in Hollywood. Like, every tabloid had club pictures from every celebrity. Everyone mingled in the same spots. And the Bling Ring group were also mingling in those same spots. In the movie, we see Kirsten Dunst, Paris Hilton. They actually make cameos at the clubs they're at. So it was definitely interesting and a little nostalgic to see the clubbing culture. I was like 13, so I was not going to the clubs, and I don't live in California. So I was definitely not going to the clubs, but I hear stories from those times, and it's like everyone would be at the clubs. Like, you would see people from TV shows and from reality TV shows and socialites, and everyone just mingling in the same circles. And that's why so many like celebrity relationships would happen, and you get all these paparazzi photos and the iconic trinity of trashy pop culture that is this photo. I enjoyed the clubbing scenes. I thought those were some of the most well done. Like, they weren't so underexposed and obviously not overexposed. Those had my favorite cinematography, and they're fun because they're like in the montage, like high moments, and good music playing. Rip the clubbing culture of the 2000s. Also kind of living for the early Facebook club photo albums. Like, early Facebook was like, it was not a vibe. It was ugly and awful, but it was just like a moment that it was so fleeting, and we didn't know. It was part of the reason they all got caught, though, because they were being dumbasses posting too much on Facebook. Live by the internet and die with the internet, I guess. Something that this movie has been heavily critiqued for is that it has a morally ambiguous tone towards the Bling Ring crew. Like, I think some critics were upset that it doesn't condemn them as much. It's funny because I have like 4 things on my list that I would critique over the morality of it all, because it's telling like a based on a true story thing. Like, I don't necessarily expect the story to have like a moral lesson at the end, which it seems like some critics wanted. And that was the only critique I saw, was about that. And I'm like, there's so many better things to critique in this movie, please. For me, I didn't expect a moral lesson at the end. It's a little bit nuanced just because these celebrities have so much excess, but the true crime here is like the invasion of privacy, truly, and the monetary stuff is a little bit secondary to that. Obviously, it's still so much. They stole over $3 million in goods and cash. So the economic impact is still important, but especially when you're looking at like a Paris Hilton type, who didn't even notice the burglaries until like the 3rd or 4th time. It's a little hard to feel like sympathy for the loss of the designer handbags and that type of stuff. But when it does get sad is when they stole like passports or people's like prized possessions that were unique, or like Rachel Bilson's grandma's jewelry or whatever. Like, those are the sad things, the sentimental things that they stole. But the big crime is just the invasion of privacy itself and the stalkery nature of the Bling Ring kids. That is the violation. It's kind of easy for me at first to be like, who cares about Paris Hilton's 2 handbags, you know, that she would never notice are missing. But obviously this is like a horrendous crime and terrifying thing to happen to these celebrities. It's sad that we live in a world where we have to like secure every door and take all these precautions and have a bunch of cameras and have a security guy standing out front, you know. And when you add in the exposure of social media and the internet, like, you're not safe from people knowing this information. I mean, Kim Kardashian learned a very difficult lesson about this, where she posted something on social media and a crazed stalker fan robbed her at gunpoint by figuring out what hotel room she was in. I don't expect a movie telling a based on a true story thing to comment on the moral lesson. I mean, they all get arrested at the end and suffer their different consequences. So I didn't have big complaints about like overtly saying what is the lesson, or having a character have like a big karma moment or something to pay for their actions. Like, I mean, we see Nick or Mark, whatever his name is, like going to jail at the end. Like, that seems pretty brutal. I think the audiences are smart enough to know that the lesson is like, this is a bad thing and it's a violation, and it was just a loophole, right place at the right time type of crime, where the internet was new enough and celebrities were naive enough and kids were crafty enough to figure out how to use all that to violate their favorite celebrities' homes. So I think that's all I have for this video. I'm trying to not make every single video super long because the editing has been a killer this summer for me. I think it's just because it's hot in my editing room right here and that's why I get tired more quickly from editing. It's nothing that deep. I love the Bling Ring as a true crime case. I just think it's so unique and fascinating. So that's all I have for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. I would love to know your thoughts on the Bling Ring, either the true crime case or the movie. Do you agree with the critics or do you agree with me? Because me and the critics are not seeing eye to eye on this one, so I would love to hear about it in the comments below. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed. I put out new videos twice a week, more like once a week this summer. But regardless, you can follow me at Miscellaneous on Instagram or Twitter to find out about new videos, or just turn on the bell notification here on YouTube. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!